Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, hope you're well. In this video, I'm teaching you 6 iconic double stop riffs. Stick around to the end to learn money for nothing, and we're going to start off with John Mayer's Vultures. Let's take a look at John Mayer's Vultures riff. You can play this one with a pick, but I'm going to use the thumb and the first finger like he'd do. There are 2 double stops here. We've got the 14th fret of the A and D strings, and then we've got the 14th and 13th fret of the D and G strings. And they're connected with notes on the 16th fret of the A and G strings like this. And a bit quicker. If you want to get a little bit closer to what he does, you want to put a few slaps in between those notes as well. Nothing too severe, but it'll sound a bit more like this if I'm just gently slapping the strings with the right hand. If you're new to this channel, please don't forget to hit subscribe. And if you're learning more about double stops, check out the other double stops lesson on the channel where I show you how to build them from the ground up. Next up, it's the riff from Buddy Holly's Heartbeat. Double stops were a huge part of rockabilly in the 1940s and 50s, and they made their way into rock and roll in the 50s and 60s. Buddy Holly's Heartbeat is one of the most famous double stop riffs, and slowed down, it sounds like this. And that riff uses intervals of thirds, major and minor thirds. Here's a minor third, and here's the major third. Here's the next riff, it's Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison. Van Morrison's Brown Eyed Girl is another riff that uses thirds and again has that really classic rock and roll rockabilly sound to it. Played slowly, it sounds like this. So we're using the second and first fingers for the major thirds and the first and third fingers for the minor thirds. If you're working on rhythm guitar and double stops, I've written 2 books for you, 100 Essential Soul Guitar Riffs and the Soul Rhythm Guitar Book. Both are full of double stop riffs, concepts, triad riffs, and tons more. You can get them on Amazon worldwide. The next riff was played by Nile Rodgers on David Bowie's song China Girl. That riff is played on the E and B strings, and it's using intervals of fourths which slide up and down the strings. Here it is slowly. When playing that riff, just make sure that you keep the pressure on the first finger all the way through so you don't lose any of the notes. It's a good idea to practice sliding those double stops around before you play the riff. I was 8 years old when this next riff came out, and I remember it from the Back to the Future soundtrack as if it was yesterday. It's the verse riff from The Power of Love. That riff was played by guitarist Chris Hayes, and it mostly uses intervals of fourths on the D and G strings here, and fourths on the G and B strings here. And when you're playing that riff, add a very light palm mute just over the bridge, which just kind of softens the sound down. Here's the riff slowly. If you're enjoying this lesson, join me on Patreon. You'll find the tab for this one, plus loads more video lessons, backing tracks, tabs, and more. Link is in the description below. This last riff is an absolute monster. It's Mark Knopfler's intro from Dire Straits' Money for Nothing. Money for Nothing is one of those riffs that Mark Knopfler never plays exactly the same way twice. But we're going to learn the intro phrase, which is what most people think of when they think of that riff. We're going to use the fingers, the thumb, index, and middle fingers. You can play it all with a pick, but you'll get a better approximation of his sound if you use the fingers. Let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at the first part of the riff slowly. We're starting off with the index finger on fret 5 of the D string, and the third finger on fret 7 of the G string. And we play this. Again. This riff isn't a million miles away from the Power of Love riff, so it's worth working on both at the same time. This one contains intervals of fifths, fourths, and thirds. Next, we start with the D and the G string played open with the thumb and index finger. To the third fret with an index finger bar. And then we pull off from there to the open D string and then play the D string again. Followed by a power chord, a B flat at fret 1, sliding up to fret 3. And then we play that again, sliding back down on the D and G strings. To the open D string. The next phrase starts with a harmonic on the 5th fret of the D string here. That's quite hard to get, and I wonder if Knopfler just did that on the day without thinking about it, or whether he really intended to. But obviously, if we're copying what he did, that's what we're going to do. So we go from here. Then we start the next bar with the 4th finger at the 8th fret of the B string. Put it all together and we get this. Spend some time working on this phrase where you play the double stop on the D and G strings. You hammer onto the 7th fret of the G string, but then you pick it again like this. Here's the last phrase played slowly. It's mostly intervals of fourths on the D and G strings and the A and D strings. One of the big challenges with the Money for Nothing riff, beyond playing it, is actually trying to get the tone in place. Knopfler did a couple of strange things in the studio, like using a cocked wah to get that treble boosted sound, and you need humbuckers of this tone really. I've done my best to approximate it here. I'm using a Magnatone Baby M80, the 335, and I've got a Jam Pedals Wacko wah just on the on position to give it that treble boost. I've used both pickups, and then I've wound the tone control right down on the treble and a bit off the bass to take away a bit too much of the bite. I've done my best. Let me know if I've got even close. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really hope you've enjoyed that one. And a huge thanks to everybody that buys the books and supports me on Patreon. It's your support that gets these videos made. Thanks very much. I'll see you soon.